Hello, thanks for joining us. Special Report Online. I'm Bret Baier. If this is your first time joining us, welcome aboard. It's a great forum. Continue the conversation with our panel. We want to hear from you, so weigh in, ask questions, make comments. Let's bring back our panel, Bret, George, AB, and Charles. We were talking about what the candidates have to do tonight. We have a montage I didn't have time for in the other panel. Take a listen to some of these candidates talking about what they need to do tonight.
Well, you know, I certainly know that this is a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity, as I say, for me to introduce myself to the almost 50% of the nation.
Well, I don't think that my strategy is going to change at all. It's going to be to tell the truth and to talk about, my vision for America.
Well, we've got to show more passion. We've got to be aggressive. You don't want to be rude. You don't want to be obnoxious, but you want to show the same kind of passion I showed when I didn't back down.
Look, I don't know who's coming from where. I hear everybody's going to be hitting me because I'm #1 in the polls, and I'll respond accordingly.
I'm going to mix it up because I like to rumble and I like to make sure people know the differences between the candidates.
Okay, different takes there. We're back with our panel. Bret, Rand Paul, he's going to mix it up. They're all talking about the fight, getting it on. I mean, it's really quite something.
Well, we always look ahead to these things and sort of in the fond hope as journalists that we'll see a real brawl because it makes news and it strikes sparks and gets everybody interested. Usually it doesn't happen. Perhaps it could tonight. You think of Scott Walker, though, for example. Here's a guy with what, in conservative eyes, should be an admirable record. He was doing great. He's completely tanked. He gave a kind of a flat, straightforward, no runs, no hits, no errors performance in the first debate, and he's really kind of never recovered. But what do you do if you're a mild-mannered Midwestern governor with a lot of guts and a lot of gumption? I mean, is he going to start shouting? What are you going to do? I mean, I think it's a very difficult thing for these candidates to sort of ask themselves to step outside their natural personalities to take on the persona of this character who has seized the moment.
Yeah, AB, it's so interesting. CNN and talking about how they're going to do it. Jake Tapper saying we're going to pit the candidates together and they're going to talk about issues and they'll debate and sparks will fly. People forget that we tried to do that numerous times in our debate, with Common Core, with immigration, with a lot of things. And the candidates, at least at that point, were not prepared to do that whole back and forth thing. On NSA, Christie and Paul did.
Right.
A couple of other times there was that interaction, but most time they wanted to get their points out. And that's the challenge.
Right. And getting your talking points out is safe and cautious, and you want to do no harm. In a lot of cases, you want to avoid. Someone like Scott Walker is on the rope, so I think he and Rand Paul come with a mission to do something different.
Well, what if
they have to. But if you're trying to survive, right? It's hard. If you're trying to survive, if you're a good debater like Huckabee, Rubio, Christie, who did well last time but didn't really stand out, you want to not, as Bret Hume famously said, and I was next to him at this table in 2012, do what Perry did, which was to throw up all over himself. And so there's peril, and there's in just surviving, and there's peril in trying to do like a big dance and stand out. I think the worst squeeze tonight is for Jeb Bush, because unlike the last debate where he just wanted to be a grown-up and just get through it, subsequently he's taken on this campaign to pick on Donald Trump and try to take him on and criticize him and call him a liberal and say he can't insult his way to the White House. You can't do that and then show up in person and then not jump on him. It looks weak. So I think actually he's probably in the most peril tonight in terms of doing something different that isn't in your personality.
What about Ben Carson, George? I mean, does he come under fire tonight since he has gained so precipitously in the past few weeks?
I don't see anyone attacking him because he is the anti-Trump. He is a gentleman. And Donald Trump is everything a gentleman isn't. So that's the source of his appeal at this point. He deflects, he almost absorbs energy around him. It's sort of a black hole of political energy, but people seem to like that, and it's an interesting contrast. The most consequential and successful sally in the history of presidential debates was 4 words long. There you go again. The country was tired of Carter, but they weren't comfortable with Reagan. Reagan had to answer. It was Carter attacking Reagan for hating old people and Medicare and all the rest. And Reagan, instead of getting righteous, said, there you go again. And the people said, he's not a wild man. We can live with him.
Prodded along to try to fight. Do you think in this environment, in the Reagan Library, in the shadow of Reagan's Air Force One, that somebody like Marco Rubio says, you know what, I'm going to go with the 11th commandment of Reagan, don't attack others?
I think, look, he did.
Even though he's low in the polls.
Look, his strategy is, I mean, he's a guy who's out there surfing. He sees a huge wave, and then he dives under and he waits until the wave is past. And he comes up again. His strategy is the tortoise strategy. There's no way to defy the Trump wind, the Trump hurricane. He's going to wade it through. He's low in the polls, but I don't see it as a precipitous drop. He's always been there. I think he sees himself as the man who probably is the most likely or has the most advantages for coming out of the so-called establishment or politician group, although he's, you know, he ran as a Tea Partier originally, so he isn't exactly old line establishment. I think his strategy is steady. You know, he did well in the first debate. I thought he won it as well. Of course, it didn't really count because, you know, it wasn't being judged on points the way a boxing match is, and everything got shaken up when there was a lot of hubbub and agitation after the debate, so it kind of wiped out the memory of the debate itself. But I think his strategy is steady as you go, be the one who can emerge. If he look, anybody who picks a fight is in danger of perhaps denting Trump or denting somebody else, but invariably you get hurt and somebody else will benefit. I think his strategy is to do what he did last time and remain steady. I don't think this is his moment to emerge.
Bret, it's worth noting that there were two candidates who made up a lot of ground in that first debate, Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson. What do they have in common? They're outsiders. And it strikes me that we're in a pass here where the voters are responding to those people and not really that much to anybody else. Of course, Trump is leading the way in that department, but that's where we are. So the question arises, you know, apart from the old adage about in politics about taking on and attacking another candidate, that if it's a multi-candidate field, you may hurt that candidate, but it doesn't redound to your own benefit. Apart from that danger, there may be just the fact that nobody's listening to these people. Nobody's paying any attention to Marco Rubio and what he says. Nobody's paying any attention. And the question in viewers' minds now, people are going to tune in in large numbers to see this exotic character who's leading the pack right now. They want to know what he's going to do or what may be done to him. And that's, I think, the extent of it. And
at some point,
somebody articulates a dazzling Reagan-esque vision of America and says it in compelling terms. Will anybody even hear?
But at some point, with all the speeches that get picked up by us, by CNN, by MSNBC, these are Donald Trump speeches, doesn't there have to be another act? Doesn't there have to be more to it? Laura Ingraham said he's got to start putting ornaments on the Christmas tree here. There's got to be some more to the show, right?
I think that, but we keep saying that, but so far it doesn't.
It doesn't be this case. Indy Farmer says, in my view, the voters are looking for the proverbial bull in the china shop to bust up the Washington cartel that's ripping us all off. Nice guys are not going to do it.
Well, I think the one danger to Trump is boredom. He has to keep advancing the story, changing the act, and doing something new. And he's really good at doing that. I mean, he does all kinds of stuff twice a week that advances the story, changes the story. If he gets hit on one item, he changes the subject. So he's kept it going. But at a certain point, for instance, you were talking about that speech he gave. It's the same stuff.
Yeah.
Right? China is killing us. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to be the best ever that the military ever had. I'm going to have the best health care. You know, I'm going to help women more than anybody. When you've heard that a dozen times, it gets less exciting.
I want to play a soundbite just from our friend Larry Sabato from UVA today.
It's very important to remember that the reality today probably won't be the reality come February 1st and February 10th when Iowa and New Hampshire vote. You know, the 2012 cycle, you had 4 or 5 frontrunners on the Republican side at one time or another. I don't think there was as strong a sentiment for outsiders as there is this year. So there's a kind of a universal anger that I think is manifesting itself in these numbers. But believe me, Gretchen, things will change. The only constant is change.
Maybe, I mean, it's a great point. You go back to every election. Steve Forbes was leading at this time at one point. You had the Herman Cain phenomena after our debate in Florida. Rick Perry was leading in 2012. Yeah. So, but is this different?
Well, it is different because until the RNC asked Donald Trump to sign a pledge that he wouldn't run as a third-party candidate, which obviously he can renege on, and we all know that. The fear was, this is different. This is not Herman Cain or Rick Perry or Michelle Bachmann, because he could self-fund and he could run third-party and he could just wreck this whole thing for the Republicans. Now he's pretending to play ball. We'll see what happens with that. Donald Trump, Charles is right. He has to keep upping his game. He cannot become boring and repeat the same things, and he can't run out of energy. Last night on that battleship, he looked like a man who really wanted to get in the car. He talked about veterans for a few minutes. He billed it, as Carl Cameron said several times in the last 24 hours in his reporting, as a national security speech. There were no details. He just finked out on the whole thing that on his own announcement. Larry Sabato is right. Today's September 16th. December 16th is 3 months away. If Iowa caucus goers are excited now, they're having a few cocktails, this is a lusty crush. Our question is, come January 16th, which is 4 months from today, are those politically engaged, politically informed, purist, conservative movement Republicans who have been involved in this caucus process over and over and over again going to vote for a guy who's going to kill the conservative movement, who only talks about budget-busting proposals, who doesn't talk about limiting government or regulations or taxation, who plans to spend a lot of money? Are they going to support him? We will find out then. It's fine to think that they're going to do it now, but I'm going to wait 4 months.
Do you know Neil Bortz? No, I'm just.
I know. What?
Neil Bortz. He was in a similar vein earlier in the show.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear his.
He said something.
I never knew until this moment that you're as much of a rhino as you've turned out to be.
I am everything. Just read my email account.
She's everything to everybody.
But Iowa, more than any other state in the union, rewards the basic blocking and tackling of politics. They want to see you in their living room. Now, close your eyes and try to picture Donald Trump in an Iowa living room. Don't laugh yet. He has a cup of cocoa balanced on one knee and a macaroon in his hand, and he's talking policy with these people. I don't think that's going to happen.
Did you see the crowd reaction when he helicoptered in and he swooped over them in that magnificent airplane? You know, I'm willing to say the rules have been suspended. I do agree, suspended for a while. In the end, I mean, it's hard to believe that, you know, the helicopter and the plane are going to impress somebody. But I have to tell you a story. On the day he arrived at the Iowa State Fair, there was someone working in my house, and around noon she said, "My God, I'm so angry. I forgot to put on the DVR to watch Trump's arrival at the Iowa State Fair." And that's when I thought, I'm missing a lot. Well, there's something going on.
There are a lot of people who think you are, and we are. Jake the Goose says, Bret, with all due respect, I'm getting sick and tired of your panel, as sick and tired as I am with Washington politicians. Kathleen in Ohio, Trump is the most exciting Republican candidate since Reagan, as a persona and commands attention. Dems have had Obama and Clinton as long as with no policies. You're all things to all people, says Doug to you, AB.
You know, I think that everyone who writes in, who's listening now and watching, could be right. I put that on the table. They could be right. He is very exciting. I don't know that he's a Republican, and I don't know if he's going to be the Republican nominee or win the Iowa caucuses or anything. And we're going to be talking about that at that time.
But that woman who says he's the most exciting candidate since Reagan, again, close your eyes and imagine Ronald Reagan using the word stupid about another
third rate, underestimated,
loser.
I mean, overestimated,
loser. I mean, that's not the way Dwight Eisenhower, Jack Kennedy.
But I think that the Trump supporters are making the argument that you don't have to be presidential anymore. You have to be exciting and passionate. You've got to break the plates and start all over again, and you've got to be tough. And maybe that's true. But what I'm thinking is, for the rest of the country in national polling that might be true, but the support that's being given to him now in Iowa and New Hampshire is interesting, because that's where
and it raises,
has the paradigm changed?
Well, it raises this question: how many of these people that are backing him so enthusiastically now and in such numbers will actually turn out to be A, Republicans, right, and B, voters? Now, it's too early in the cycle, really, for pollsters to start putting on their likely voter screens and determining, how many people these people will actually be likely to come out and vote. It is even more sharply the case when you're talking about Iowa, where you just don't show up and cast a ballot. You have to come out and spend the evening in some location somewhere and spend time and so on. It requires organization and all the rest of it. I don't think we know the answer to that, but it's certainly fair to say that a great many of these people, given their responses to Trump and to criticisms of Trump, are really not conservatives. Because if they were, they wouldn't be attracted by a lot of what he said.
Jennifer in New York says, I'm sorry, but Trump is diverting attention away from foreign policy, which is a winner for Republicans, especially against Hillary and Biden. Trump's focus on deporting 11 million plus illegals plays right into the Democrats' hands. Women are especially interested in national security. Hillary is imploding. The big issue should be foreign policy, limit government spending, and overturn replacing Obamacare.
Sounds like a Lindsey Graham voter.
There are a few
Carly
people.
Fiorina voter.
Possibly.
Maybe. There are a few people here, George, who want you to address the direct name calling you took in the Dallas speech from Mr. Trump.
Yes, well, being called a disaster by Donald Trump is like being called ugly by a frog. I don't know what exactly the disaster I represent is, but I'm happy to be in his sights.
Okay, a lot of mixed views here. I'm a conservative attracted to Trump, Mike Harmon says. You have to admit, though, he's widened. You talk about Republicans, RNC says you got to broaden the base of voters.
I
he
disagree.
has broadened the base.
You all remember former Senator Judd Gregg of New Hampshire, certifiable, true blue conservative Republican. Maybe not the most conservative Republican, but certainly a card-carrying member of the caucus. I saw him a few weeks ago, and he thought the Trump phenomenon was great for the party, that it's going to bring more people's interest in the Republican side of things and expand the base. Maybe so.
I think his immigration language and his one of the only things he's actually put details into is his immigration plan, and I refer everyone to George Will's column where he did all the math for us about what rounding up 11 million people would involve. But obviously it's a total loser, to quote Donald Trump in the general election.
Since I wrote that column, he's clarified. This is about as specific as he's gotten. So I asked him, will this take 5 or 10 years? He says, no, 2 years. In 2 years. Now, what that will require in the way of police measures to impose what is actually ethnic cleansing on his part.
And he actually said the other night, I believe in Dallas, that the illegals are going to be gone on day one. So it's great ambition, but it's a general election loser. And everyone at the RNC who are crunching the data and the models actually think that he is subtracting the voters coming.
Let me
not
just finish because I want to wrap up so we can watch, get ready and watch the debate. By the way, Jennifer in New York says not a Lindsey Graham voter. Go Carly. So she is a Carly.
All right. I wanted to make one last point about her, but let's listen to the.
No. So this most to lose, most to win in this debate.
I think the one with the most on the line is Jeb, because of the storyline that he's imploding, and because when you take on somebody outside the arena, Pawlenty was killed by the fact that he attacked Mitt Romney on the trail, and then in the debate he had a chance for the shot and he did not do it. And he left the race a week or two later. I think he's got to show something. I don't know how, it's not easy, but having taken it on, I think he's got the most at stake.
Okay, most to win, most to lose.
I think Carly Fiorina is the third outsider. She searched the top tier from the back of the heap in the last debate. If she performs better than Donald Trump and Ben Carson tonight, she upends the dynamic in terms of people looking for an outside choice and a non-establishment choice, a non-politician choice. I agree. I'm going to tie it with Jeb and Scott Walker with most to lose.
George, same question.
I think the most to lose is probably Chris Christie, because Bush and Walker and others have some strengths that aren't shown up in a debate format, and the debate centric campaign. I don't see what he has besides a good performance in this debate. He is the most to lose in that sense. The most to win, I think, is Fiorina, because everyone's watching her. She's very good at this repartee. And she has an unattractive, unsympathetic adversary.
I think it's kind of a mathematical question, Bret. It's tempting to say that Jeb Bush, with all he's been through and all he's sort of promised he might do tonight, has a lot to lose. But he's so far down now that if he lost 10% of his support, it wouldn't make that much difference. But suppose Donald Trump lost 10% of his. That would be huge, right?
Huge, actually.
I mean, huge. That would be huge. That would be a big deal.
An example of what he could possibly say that he
He
hasn't
could get in a
said
fight with a
up
woman
until
or Dr.
now.
Carson.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
he has.
he has,
He
but
took on Carson.
No, he took back what he said about Fiorina.
Charles.
He said that
So
Carson
you're saying that
is
Donald-
a so-so doctor.
that unlike anybody who's ever run for president before, this guy's incapable of making a huge mistake?
Well, he's made so many that have cost him not only not cost
In other words, you're
him-
saying that he's not capable of making a mistake that will make any difference.
Well, that's the point. Yeah.
Well,
of course.
I think
Yeah, he's
I think
human.
we haven't. Look, I think the rules may be suspended, but they haven't been entirely repealed.
It's a nice metaphysical
We will
question.
find
A
out.
mistake that makes no difference is a mistake.
Yeah.
We will find out, and we will have complete analysis of the debate right here on Fox News Channel right after the debate, 11 p.m. with Bill O'Reilly. Britt will be on there, I'll be on there, and it'll continue all night, the analysis of the big debate. We hate to talk about another channel, but it's over at CNN, and we'll see you afterwards. Okay, we're going to wrap up early. We'll see you next Wednesday.